before that, let's see over here. Some couple of so this idea from opening, right? That look, this will not be able to economically survive, right? We think that most countries, including Mosul, has enough oil resources were able to sustain themselves anyway. And I don't buy that diversity of being able to sustain the resources is some sort of threshold that we need to have. So I don't understand why that necessarily makes too much sense. But then we get a really sort of good analysis from the deputy prime minister, which comes and says that look, businesses and people need to interact, and that uses that animosity, right? This is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the PKK formed, because recognize that for 50 years, the Kurdish people, particularly within Turkey, tried everything. They did their peaceful ways in trying to have political representatives fail, which gave the birth of the movement of the PKK, right? We think when you have tried everything and there's no other option to go for, the only way is to have an independent state, and we support that. But lastly, from over to closing government, this idea, and I pointed this out, that okay, I think I'm really having a hard time finding out why nationalism in this particular way is problematic. But even if there are these minorities, we think it's probably having a situation that they move, they probably don't want to say it anyway. But then this idea that comes from both of the government speeches, that look, these are terrorists and they're violent and they have ruined the nation. Okay. I'll tell you something, right? Because this is very unique to me because ethnicity has come from language, right? I'm going to ethnicity, my ethnicity also comes from a language. And the way the independence of Bangladesh was found is when you were able to organize activism for your ethnicity. Why is it important, right? Because at that time, the United States was against it, right? It supported Pakistan. But then Bangladesh was formed the next year, all the countries just started supporting it. We think first, I don't believe the fact that simply because you have produced violent means that people will never support you. We've seen this again and again, right? We think that this narrative of terrorism is a pejorative term that has changed into freedom fighters once you win it, once you have independence. This has happened before. But more importantly, we tell you that there are places in which individuals have changed their violent views too. You can look at Iran and Palestine, they're supported by a Zionist regime. Now they're sitting in parliament in Israel having religious politics and no political and no violence. So even if they want to really think that this is going to be violence, we're happy to contend and agree that it's not going to happen there. Okay, so why do the Kurds, even in Turkey, have a positive right to claim the land? First, the foundation of modern Turkey was built on the subjugation and exploitation of the Kurdish body, right? We think ethnic Kurds derive their identity from language, right? They're separate from Turkish people, given the fact that they have their own language. What does Turkey have? In Turkey, you have to have a mandatory, speaking of Turkish and just the Turkish language. We think this is a fundamental assault on their human dignity, in which literally the basis of their identity from their ethnicity is something that the Turkish government will not ever see as. Secondly, we think we've seen this, that Armenian genocide predates the formation of Turkey, right? We've seen the population exchanges between Greece meant that Turkey was able to send the Greeks back to the Greece, and anybody who was not a Turk was not welcome. We think that the sting of stigma and subjugation still exists in the Kurdish people and gives them a claim to the land because the birth of the Turkish modern Turkey happened at the displacement, at the cosmic displacement of the ethnic Kurds in those regions. But lastly, even if you don't after this, we think that this ethnic cleansing gives them a positive right to claim the land. But okay, why do we think that even then, if you don't buy that, there is a diametrical opposition between the goals of the Kurdistan and Kurdish people and the Turkish government currently? First, we think that Erdogan, and we've seen this in his rhetoric, right? He's literally said there's no higher honor to any individual in Turkey than being a civic Turkish identity. We think at the very best, they get a surface level tolerance of the Turkish people, but they hate their language, and they think that you're just a different Turk. We think that we've all seen this in the way Erdogan has, I'll take opening in a second, conducted foreign policy, right? So for instance, Turkey never cared about the war in Syria, and people were bombing in regions, particularly within that were populated by Kurdish people. But we think the only time Turkey started caring was when there was a bombing in the airport, which means that Erdogan is happy that lives of Kurdish people can be lost. We think these are not only a historical precedent, but present-day current narratives organized and orchestrated by Erdogan and the Turkish government, mean that they cannot sustain themselves in a place where not only there are other people, but the government needs them.
If successful Kurdish human capital and industries are able to provide a benefit to Turkey writ large, why is it true that Erdogan's rhetoric is going to supersede in the minds of these Turkish people the actual tangible benefit that they're deriving from Kurdistan being integrated into Turkey?
Right, here's the thing. I think you're true, but you're misleading, because I like your argument, I promise. But this has failed for the last 50 years, given the birth of a radical movement, means that this is not something we can just hinge for. But anyway, why is there another talk about rights? Why is they able to capacity, right? So we think that if you look at America, the most peaceful place closest to the institution is Rojava, right? What is it? It is a vital political entity that has been able to do pretty well against ISIS and is capable of defending their space, right? We've also seen how it governs the way Marxist direct democracy like ability. We think the West is going to love it. You know why the West is going to love it? Because the West really likes democracy. Second, how this people Peshmerga is about is literally made up of women leaders. We think this form of like radical female empowerment is great, and we think we'll get the recognition that they talk about. But lastly, we think that this idea that that this form of U.S. leverage, we think that recognize that the U.S. has funded the Kurds in Istanbul. Kurds have been able to deal with this, organize themselves, and conduct vitally and be able to defend themselves. At the end of my speech, I'm going to recognize a couple of things. We are happy to defend, even the worst, even the hardest scenario, in which we believe the Kurds who live in Turkey are able to do this. Why? Because they have a positive right to claim the land, because they've been historically subjugated, they've been ethnic cleansed, and they've done everything that they can, done the businesses, done all these movements still fail. Secondly, we think the goals of Erdogan and the Turkish government is diametrically opposed to the Kurdish identity. And lastly, they've proven that they can do it by themselves and be capacity. For all these reasons, yeah, Kurdistan.
I thank you everyone for their speech, and I welcome the government whip to close up the case for the Gov side.
So I think both whip speeches should probably start with like an apology to the CA team because of how badly it's surrounded with you guys' motion. Obviously, we're not talking about the issues we really should be talking about, and it's just kind of a shame. What I think I'm going to do for you in this whip speech is point out where I think the real importance of this debate is, and we think it largely comes down to overall who can ensure a better quality of life for citizens either in something like a Turkey, because apparently Iraq has forgotten this is part of the motion, or two, whether or not a Kurdistan would provide a better quality of life for individuals. I think that most arguments around really are couched in that weighing mechanism. Before I do so, 3 points of clarification. I'm going to do a little bit of a straightness rebuttal. I guess I'll just get right into that now. So, from the previous speaker, we hear a couple of things that most of which I don't actually necessarily disagree with. I'm just not sure why it's relevant. So, ethnicity is fundamentally founded in language. Like, yeah, that's mostly how oppression works. He says later that he indicts our entire bench for using the rhetoric of talking about terrorists, even though it was his own opening opposition team against terrorists, so I'm not really sure why that matters. But in general, what he tells us is that we are discounting the legitimate claims of the Kurdish people because they live through a history of oppression. Right? That we can engage with because that's what my partner talks about. So when we're talking about the Kurdish individuals, and specifically like their history of oppression and how best to alleviate that, we are talking about quality of life at the fundamental level. We're talking about whether or not were I a Kurd, would ultimately be living a better life in an independent Kurdistan, or whether I would be living a better life in Turkey, which I think both sides of this round currently recognize is certainly not perfect, right? I think that one, it's pre-vetted by our opening government at the point where they tell you that necessarily there's like this democracy solves hypothesis out there, where fundamentally like when you are part of a group, that's the only way to change the notions of that group. And like which is fundamentally true when they tell you that just moving about 50 miles down the road and changing what the border is won't necessarily eliminate all Turkish influence from your culture. You mentioned the Armenian genocide. Armenia is a great example of this. Just because they're not part of Russia, just because they're not part of Azerbaijan, it's not like they're independent from those cultural influences. And what I think Solar does to really extend this and do a better job of pre-vetting it also is when he talks to you specifically about why being an ethno-nationalist state in a region based, as opening opposition says, on sectarian conflict is not really a desirable world to live in. What General Hogan, I think Hogan, of the Israeli military has always said is that being a friend of the West is the kiss of death in the Middle East. And I think this is true, right? I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in my questions of clarification. I'm going to get to this now. First thing on the top half of today's debate, I think there was largely a question of whether a Kurdish state would be solved. Well, not the most important issue in the round. I do want to give credit to our opening government because I think they do a very good job of establishing, like, one, why independence is not necessarily like a solid position, both economically, because they're, as they said, based on largely one or two resources that ultimately do not have a high amount of export value. Like their economic arguments are definitely true, right? There's not really much reputation that even goes into that. Mostly what opposition decides to peg in is, yeah, but we gotta try anyway. We'll deal with that in a second. But two, when we're talking about like necessarily why being the solvency of a Kurdish state, we also have to look at the geopolitical, and I think that my partner Solar actually does the best job on the ground of telling you why this won't be the case. Because as, again, opening opposition started, we're talking about a region that is largely defined by sectarian conflict. And I think that there is more likely to be negative effects in a conflict that is multinational than a conflict that is done at the ballot box democratically, which is kind of the iteration that ultimately both government teams are arguing for, right? The problem over here is that they seem to argue with you, look, this thing has never changed before, the thing is not currently in the process of changing, although I think a lot of facts that we brought you will prove that's not true. Therefore, you need to entirely buy out of the system because that's the only way that you're going to get change. So their burden of proof then was to prove to you that somehow entirely living outside that system will alleviate the historical oppression that occurs in the region have faced. And I think my partner Solar does a good job of telling you why that isn't true. It gets me into my second question. What effect does this ultimately have on the Kurds when we establish Kurds? So I think that when we're looking at like the plight of nationalist minorities within large, somewhat oppressive states, we have a large degree of precedent we can actually look to. And I think that one, my partner gives you the example of Chechnya. I think that's a good example of how integrating into the system has actually helped you negotiate for both more autonomy, because the Chechens can use the Russian military to back up their geopolitically their ability to autonomy, but also it's given them more power domestically, because as they consolidated in the region of Chechnya, they're able to get more representation overall in the Russian parliament. I think this is one example of being good. There are a couple others too I'll get into after I take over.
To be sure, your partner tells us this Kurdistan state will be recognized by the international community, and that leads to a bunch of crimes. Opening government tells you the international community will not recognize that state. How is that not a massive win?
It was a massive night, but we're right. Yeah, okay. Fundamentally, we do think that the West is ultimately, specifically the United States, is probably going to recognize this particular Kurdish state because they have been faithful in the Kurds for so long. Yeah, opening government is, they don't know things. Like fundamentally, what we're telling you here is that what is the next step, right? We go deeper into the analysis of what happens when there is that Western influence. And I think it does look a lot like the nation of Israel, a nation that is perpetually in a state of conflict, and we don't think this ensures that quality of life that we're talking about for the Kurdish people. We would prefer them to look more like minority groups, like the Quebecois in Canada, like the Chechens in Russia, or like the region of Jinping, the Muslim minority of China, where they have integrated into the government and ultimately been able to gain concessions for their quality of life, then to look like Tibet, who have rebelled against it constantly, and because of the overwhelming military force of their nearest rivals, ultimately lost that ability and been squelched further. We think this is like a really obvious reason why you're going to prefer the quality of life we offer you on site government. But and that gets me to my final question about what effect ultimately this will have on the region, right? Because we think that what we're talking about here, fundamentally, when we're talking about the quality of life, is whether or not I, as a Kurd, think that I'm going to live a better life in Kurdistan than I would in Turkey. It's kind of the theme of this whole speech. I don't know if you've caught that yet. But what we're talking about here is whether or not we can solve for these like large harms of oppression. And I don't think that either side of this debate is in any world claiming that they can do so completely. None of us are saying that we can rewrite the history of colonialism, the history of the Middle East, and make everything up and roses. What we do have to do is make it calculus. Because the problem with closing is that they get up here and tell you that we need to stand for this kind of restorative justice at all costs. And I think this is fundamentally unfair to the Kurdish people who we think are going to be suffering the most in a new sectarian state, right? Like my partner tells you, often the way that you actually get these gains is when these radicals like the PKK emerge and force people to go to the decision-making table. We see this with like national minorities in Chechnya, I've already gone with this. But we think that the other alternative to that is when you do decide to rebel against these power structures that you're part of and form your own structure on yourself. And then that's when you're utterly alone. The only backbone that we believe this Kurdish state would have, besides their own currently oil wealth and military reserves, is what they are given to them by the West. And we think that when you look at what Israel has done, there are two harms that come from this. One, Israel is constantly at war with all of their neighbors, be they Lebanon, be they Iran, etc., because their very existence is something that, like I said, the West supports a kiss of death in the region. But secondarily, we think that it also has changed the way that Israel as a government treats its own people. And we think there will be no difference in Kurdistan. Kurdistan, because it is a state of perpetual rebellion, and that rebellion is predicated on them being ethnically very, very Kurdish, those Kurdish nationalist ideas are going to have to necessarily open the government will lead to the oppression of the Iraqis, of the Arabs within that particular region. Ultimately, when you're comparing the two houses, you're looking for a better life for Kurds and a better life for non-Kurds in areas controlled by the Kurdish state, and it's why we're very proud to propose it.
I thank the Gov Whip for the speech, and I welcome oh God, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I welcome the opposition Whip to close out the debate as a whole.
fighting and engaging with the group of Kurds that massively outweigh all of the Kurds in Iran, Iraq, and Syria combined. Honorable Speaker, let's talk about, I'm going to give you some outstanding rebuttal, mostly directed at the closing, but also at the opening as well. And then go back over what was not engaged with three-part analysis, the right, the will, and the capacity to defend the Kurdish state. We will take them at their best, and we think that even if we lose all of these things, we think the benefits we gain for Kurdish nationalism for years to come, the legacies created, and the fact that the harms are not much worse than what the Kurds experience right now, or have experienced in the past 30 years, we think we win this debate. So we think that the so opening starts off, and they talk a lot about sort of cultural illegitimacy because of this Iraqi and Turkish rhetoric about how they're not like, really part of these societies. We think they're totally right about that. And we think the only thing worse than having those kinds of people across your border are having those kinds of people within your borders, and they're also the ones who control the government, right? That they're also the dominant ethnicity, right? This is the only way that we can escape basically the reaches of the Turkish narrative that Rifat gave you about how there's no higher honor in Turkey than to be a Turk. Right? We think, and we know from history, that Kurds who live in Turkey have been forced through the past century to assume Turkish names, to speak Turkish. The Kurdish nationalists who are even though they're in power in the parliament, they do not get to speak their language in the parliament, right? And they're incredibly discouraged from actually advocating for things like language issues, right? So let's just, so the most important thing is that all of the harms that we've talked about are not in history, right? They're not gone, they still exist today. And that's going to be part of my major point. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that someone brought up Chechnya. Very sorry. One example you could possibly bring up, you hit the wrong person with that example. No, that is not what happened. He gives the rosiest fucking picture conceivable of how Vladimir Putin dealt with Chechnya at the end of the 90s. What happened is that Russia installed a strongman. His name is Ramzan Kadyrov. He has an amazing Instagram account, who turned over from the Chechen insurgency, right? And is now subjugating his own citizens with the blessing of Putin's government and the security forces, right? And we think the amount of abuse, torture, and suppression that exists now in Chechnya is even worse than the warfare, the active warfare in the 90s, right? In order to maintain peace and stability. If they think that it's going to look like Chechnya on their side of the house, we think they're right, and we think that is the worst conceivable world, honorable speaker. So, we also think that, so we'll meet them where they talk about the better quality, the best quality of life possible, right? We think what they define, or sort of what they define is a continued life of subjugation and resentment by the populations of these countries, right? Where they cannot live their lives freely. We think that even if there are Kurdish politicians who are gaining power in parliament, right? We think the Turkish population, the people who actually live in Turkey, are never going to accept these people, right? After years of the PKK violence, after years of all these things, right? After years of being fed this Turkish nationalism in schools, in broadcasts, in statues of Ataturk, they're fucking everywhere in Turkey, oh my god. We think that the ways in which they're fed this constantly means that Turks are never going to accept Kurds in their country who speak Kurdish, who have Kurdish names, who are proud of their Kurdish identities. That is an awful quality of life to not be able to live that. And we think that even if they have an independent state that fails ultimately, we think that the harms are not much worse on that side of the house. So let's talk about why they have the right to go for an independent Kurdistan, right? We think Rifat told you the story of the ways in which the Kurds in Turkey were the largest Kurdish group, have identities that are incompatible with that of the modern states of Turkey and Iraq, right? We think the national narrative of Turkey, and to a lesser extent Iraq, but still, is such that the national and ethnic identity of a Turk supersedes all other identities, right? So what they have had to defend on this side is continued violence, cultural, psychological, emotional, sometimes actually lethal in the case, in the fact that Kurds are still being killed in like counterinsurgency efforts in southeastern Turkey today. That never stopped, right? That didn't go away. The violence never stopped. We think the lives that Kurds live in Turkey and Iraq are ones of constant second-class citizenry, whose identities have been under siege since before and at the founding of these states post-World War I, right? And we think that at the time, insofar as the Kurds tried for many, many years before the PKK even existed to try this peaceful political integration, it did not work, right? And insofar as they've already engaged in so much violence that they've started to raise the possibilities with the Syrian war of maintaining an independent state, we think they must do so now. I will take front